Yeah, Jason Weigandt here, blowing out your eardrums if you had headphones in. But we were definitely not yelling, yeah! Late in the race, we were watching high atop in the press box in US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis over the weekend because Chase Sexton threw away what coulda, shoulda, woulda been the second 450 Supercross win of his career. And oh, by the way, this hurts Sexton even more as far as the ultimate prize, which is winning the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship. The 22-year-old goes back to 6th in points and is basically an entire race down. And I mentioned that he's 22 years old because we are now looking at a potential two-rider breakaway between Jason Anderson and Eli Tomac at the top of the series standings. They are both 29 years old. And the rider third in the standings now is Malcolm Stewart, who is also 29 years old. And this is significant because according to my calculations, the oldest Supercross champion ever was Jeremy McGrath, who was 28 years old when he won the title in the 2000 season. He would turn 29 later that year, which means we are looking at very good odds for the oldest champion ever. And that's going to be the topic of this video. Why is that happening? Now, there's an obvious factor. You look in other sports, nutrition, training, those things have all advanced. And that's why you're getting Tom Brady in his 40s and LeBron James in his late 30s still performing at a very high level. Yes, I believe that is a factor for sure. Athletes are just aging more slowly because of better training and diet, nutrition, more knowledge about rest. That helps. But I think we know that the champions of this sport have generally retired due to mental fatigue and mental stress and not wearing out physically. So that's really what we're going to explore here. And I think there's a bunch of theories that all make sense, at least to me, as to why the riders are staying in the game older. And I don't even mean the 30-year-old novelty. People love Tim Ferry because he was 30 plus, and then Kevin Windham, and then Chad Reed. Now it's Justin Brayton. You know me, I would love to do a whole video about how amazing it is for Brayton to still be a top 10 guy at age 37. But this is not that. That was started by Ferry back in the day. This is the new thing where the riders nearing age 30 are at the absolute peak of anybody in the sport. They're not just competitive, they are the best. And we have to figure out why that is. There's a couple of reasons. Now, one is counterintuitive to what you might think, which is I think the riders do a better job these days of treating the sport, well, like a job. And I know that normally is a recipe for burnout. That we say, once you lose the passion and the fun and you treat it like a job, it's time to get out. I don't mean a job like that. I put it like this. There was a long time where the cool trend for the top riders was to own their own practice facility, their own track. And there are so many stressors that come with that, managing the facility. A dozer track breaks. What about the water truck? The bills, the upkeep, the permits, who's allowed to go there, insurance, all those things. I've talked to riders who own facilities. It sounds amazing to have your own dreamland, but man, it adds a lot of stress. And if you're the top Supercross rider in the world, the last thing you want is a whole bunch of paperwork and stress and employees to manage, which only adds more stress to that very stressful lifestyle. The idea that the top rider owns his own track is kind of out now. Carmichael did it, Reed did it, Villopoto did it, Stewart did it. Now, most of the riders are going to a facility managed by somebody else. And they also have trainers who are telling them, here's your schedule. So that allows them to clock in and clock out. They don't even load the bike up. We all know when you go riding, what's the hardest part, honestly, of going riding? It's the loading up. It's the 45 minutes to an hour to get the gear bag and the cooler and the snacks and everything you need and get the bike in the truck and go. These guys drive a regular car. They get there. The bike is waiting for them with a practice mechanic. I'm sure they've got gear and a locker there. They ride. They do the gym work. They do the bicycle work. They're done. 2, 3 in the afternoon, they are completely tuned out of thinking about racing. It's not on the brain 24/7. Not only because the commute to work is a lot simpler, they don't have to worry about the facility at all. And they are surrounded by trainers who are going to say, yeah, you did the work today. Between 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, just hang out. Don't wear yourself out. Please try to eat smart. Don't drink. But you don't have to think about motorcycles. Where I think before things were a little less sophisticated and the guys were spending 24 hours a day saying, did I do enough? Did I do enough? I'm worried. And the dozer track just broke. I also think the teams and riders have begun to recognize that having fun is an integral part of success on the track. There was a time, you've seen everyone complain about it in the YouTube comments, where riders were corporate. They were just corporate cardboard robots. And I think that was by design. If you go back 30, 40 years ago, I think the motorcycle industry was trying to escape from the old Hells Angels, Harley Davidson rebel mentality. They were trying to show that the sport was sophisticated and elite and professional for athletes, and it was family friendly. That was a mission at one point, but that ship has sailed. I don't think people associate Supercross racers with Harley Davidson riders and Hells Angels anymore. Now, I think they've realized that showing personality sells product, and they're encouraging the riders to be themselves. And they've realized that happy racers are fast racers. When a rider's having fun, he tends to ride better. So instead of kicking him in the butt and yelling at him to try to motivate him to do more, the trainer said he did everything he has to do. Let him enjoy his life. Listen to this from Jeremy Coker, team manager for Eli Tomac.
I get to talking to him, and I noticed that he's not enjoying the sport anymore. He's not having fun. He's not coming to the races with a smile on his face or leaving the races with a smile on his face. And so that's when I took it to heart of, you know what, not only do I want to get Eli Tomac on my team and have him win championships, but I want him to come to my team, be at the track every day with a smile on his face, laughing, enjoying the sport like he used to in the amateur days and at the beginning of his pro. So in order for me to create this as a fun thing, that the reason he started doing this, that's my number one goal. And I feel like we're achieving it. Now, not only are we achieving major success with him, but he smiles, he laughs, he talks more than I've ever seen him talk. He's a riding a wheelie going into the finish line at A2. I mean, that's huge.
Listen to that. Eli Tomac, embrace the fun. That's going to add years to his career. And Jason Anderson is in the same situation. Now, Anderson won this title in 2018. And I believe that, although the bonus check was nice, although the accolades and the pats on the back were nice, I don't think Anderson actually liked the lifestyle of being the Supercross point leader or the champion. Look, Anderson's got an awesome off-the-track personality. Quite innovative. The Team Fried thing, the branding, the image, the vlog, everyone has copied it. Everyone loves Team Fried. I believe I might even be part of Team Fried. It's a very big team. We all want to be on it. But Anderson eschews doing the regular media stuff. He doesn't like to do interviews. I appreciate every time that he does it because I know he absolutely hates it. I think Tomac and Anderson, they're not the most outward guys out there. They're a bit introverted. They like to do their own thing. Anderson did a great job of getting his personality across on his terms without having to do it on pesky media type terms like myself. That helped. But when he had to do the regular stuff, as the red plate holder and the number one plate holder and the Supercross champ, I don't think he liked it one bit. As a matter of fact, I think there was a lot less stress for Anderson where he was in, say, 2020 and 21, where he was a guy that could win races, that could podium, that was in the mix. If you're that good, you're still going to get paid. You're still going to get a ride. No one's going to call you a loser. But at the same time, you don't have to be under the gun every week. Just look at where Ken Roczen and Cooper Webb are right now. 5-6 weeks of bad finishes and the entire career ceiling is crashing down on them. We're wondering what's up. Their teams are certainly wondering what's up. They're wondering what's up. Cooper Webb had a couple of 8th place finishes and the sky was falling. Anderson probably had a whole bunch of 8th place finishes the last couple of years and no one even noticed. So I think Anderson was very comfortable being in that position. But then something amazing happened.
All right, we will go to Jason Weigandt.
Yeah, thanks, Jason from Racer X again. I'll go to you, Jason Anderson. You know what it's like to deal with the pressure of winning this title and how difficult that is. Is there a moment this year or even the offseason and switching where you've kind of reset and said, hey, I'm all in, whatever that brings, it brings? Because it sure seems like you're not worried about red plates, points, leads, any of that. You're all in.
Yeah, to be honest, until I, call it quits on my career or whatever, I just want to put my heart out there. And I think, making that switch and, maybe struggling a little bit, whatever the result is, I just want to keep striving to be my best, and it's honestly a tough thing to be vulnerable with yourself, be able to suffer, be able to, get tired sometimes. And for me, I'm just going to try and put it all on the line until I call it quits, and I feel like that's a change for me just mentally and stuff like that. And then obviously, changing my team and stuff like that, that's been refreshing, but most of all, just more personally, I really feel a lot better, and I'm enjoying myself and trying to embrace, each emotion, whether it's negative, positive, I have a bad day, good day, and I leave the track and go hang out.
He got to age 28. And so did Tomac. because the magic number for a former Supercross champion, a rider who has had to deal with the pressure, is 28. Brian Villopoto retired at age 27. Ricky Carmichael retired at age 27. Ryan Dungey retired at age 27. When we talk about these days the riders retire young in this sport, we're specifically really talking about those three riders. Now, the pressure of having to win every race and every title broke them down. And you're probably going to say, yeah, the Alden Baker training program, it's not designed for longevity. Alden himself will admit that. But I believe 28 is a magical age for a motocross, supercross athlete. They're finally mature enough to handle all that pressure, to handle all those expectations, to not let it drag them down. We often forget how young the riders in the sport are. We had a preseason press conference back in 2007 where someone was trying to get a rise out of James Stewart and said, James, do you feel like the Peyton Manning of your sport? A lot of great individual accomplishments, but you can't win the big one? Peyton Manning, at the beginning of 2007, was 2 months away from winning his first Super Bowl. He was the guy that had the individual accolades, but didn't win the title. I guess we could say that was the case with Stewart. He hadn't won the AMA Supercross title yet in 2007. But here's the difference. James Stewart is 9 years younger than Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was 30 at that point. James Stewart was 22. James Stewart was the age that Peyton Manning was when Peyton Manning was in college. But we expected the world of Stewart at 22 years old, college age. We forget how young these riders are. And then we heap all this pressure on them. And also remember, in a previous era, we didn't quite have the parity. So the idea that you could win every race and you would never have a bad race, those expectations were even higher. But what is Ryan Villopoto post age 28 like now? The most fun-loving guy out there, right? I also got to give credit to the Tomac family. John and Kathy, the parents, they talked quite a bit about not burning out Eli at a young age. So a team came along and said, let's have some fun. Let's extend your career. Eli didn't ride quite as much and burn himself out at age 12 and 13. He was good enough to get to that 28-year-old mark. Anderson took the pressure off after winning that 2018 title. He was good enough to get to that 28-year-old mark. And now they are men. Now they are men that understand that travel and media obligations and pressure and all that, they can handle that. They're not college-age students anymore. Notice that the prime peak athletes in most sports that have to handle that type of pressure are generally late 20s, early 30s. I think that's helped a lot. A couple of things help bridge that gap to get the riders to that magical 28-year-old mark where they're comfortable in their own skin and everything that comes with being a champion. And once they get there, there's no end in sight. Almost gets to that age 37. You knew I was going to bring Brayton up again. Man, he is riding awesome at a very advanced age. Now, there's one other thing I have to throw in here. I know it's kind of sporty to put controversial videos out there and say that the sport is dying. The sport is not dying. The sport is, if anything, growing. It's at very least very, very stable. We're 50 years into the AMA National Motocross Championship, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, as we call it now. We're about 50 years into Monster Energy AMA Supercross. 50 years. And for the most part, the same factory teams have been going to the same races the entire time. Most motorsports would absolutely kill for that type of stability. What's more than that, we've expanded. If you go back to the 1980s, you essentially had 4 factory teams. They didn't even support 125 Supercross. It didn't even exist until 1985. They generally had maybe 2 250 factory riders and an additional 250 Supercross rider who they dispatch to the 125 Nationals. You're looking at 4 teams, generally with 3 riders. That is 12 factory rides in the 1980s in the entire sport. 12 in the entire sport. We have 12 in the 250 class alone. And we know when we get to Anaheim 1 every year, we're talking about there's 18, 20 riders that have good rides. Suzuki, yes, they have fallen upon hard times. But you have to give credit to KTM. They have 3 factory riders in the 450 squad. They have Husqvarna. They have Gas. The other teams are still vibrant and healthy. And then we have these satellite or factory type teams. Yeah, I did a rant on Vince Freeze and the Smart Top Bullfrog Spas Moto Concepts Honda team 2 weeks ago, but I did praise them. Mike Genova spends a ton of money keeping riders on the racetrack and giving them factory-like programs. It's the same thing for Forrest Butler and his Rocky Mountain ATVMC Fly WPS KTM team. It's a factory-like team. Brayton on the 1 squad, and then McElrath and Joey Savacci and Max Anstey on the Rocky Mountain squad. They're able to check in, go to a riding facility, have a coach and trainer, do their thing and check out just like the factory riders. They have earned extra years in the sport. There are a lot of teams like that. And we have to thank them for that. Because the stress of I'm going to lose my ride if I get 7th place or I'm not going to make any money, there's a lot more rides. There's a lot more money. There's a lot more incentive to stay in the game when you're going to get a contract for the next year and you're still going to make money and you're going to still have this awesome lifestyle where you don't even have to load your motorcycle up in a truck to go practice every day. One other thing. In 2020, we thought racing might be over. I interviewed Eli Tomac during the doldrums when we didn't know if, due to coronavirus, Supercross and motocross were ever coming back. Yeah, it was that crazy at one point. I was also crazy enough to think that maybe this will be what unites a highly polarized society, this coronavirus thing. Boy, I was wrong about that. But I think any rider who has lived through 2020, where they thought maybe the paychecks would stop and they would never race their motorcycle professionally again, got some perspective. Because Tomac actually told me, when I interviewed him during that, he'll never complain about going to the airport again, as long as he gets to race his motorcycle again. So any rider who lived through that is probably going to cut a couple extra years in. Because they've all realized, for all these reasons, that being a professional dirt bike racer is awesome. Why would you want to stop?